Hey Garth, good to see you again.
Jason, always a pleasure. Highlight of my week.
Yeah, this is going to be a great episode. But before we get to it, I've got a question for you, Garth. Have you ever felt culture shock? And if you did, what did you learn from it?
Ooh, yeah. I've done a lot of traveling.
Hmm.
Most the time I experience culture shock the most is probably when I come back from traveling. I love being immersed in new cultures. Not that I'm like redefining myself, but I love that feeling of just being sort of fluid and adopting to different social mores, adopting to different time schedules, adopting to different ways of eating, and like when you eat and what you eat. Yeah, so it's mostly when I return from those types of experiences. Now, Jason, usually at this time I would turn it around. I would ask you this question, but today we are joined by three Havergal students who are just incredible human beings. So why don't we ask them, Lily, Peyton, and Sophie, in that order, when have you experienced culture shock? What did you learn from it?
Yeah, I think the first time I experienced culture shock like on my own, didn't really have much support, was when I was on exchange. And I thought I was well mannered. Like I thought my parents, my grandparents had taught me well, but French manners are very different than mine and the ones we've learned like in Canada. And so yeah, I was kind of shocked at like the things that they were telling me and how like I wasn't being very like polite, like putting your hands in your
Wow.
lap at dinner and things like that are really impolite and you should have your hands on the table in France and all these different things. And I think that was pretty shocking to me when I was there.
All right, Peyton.
I think for me, I also found the same thing when I went on exchange. Lily and I went to the same place as well, a year apart. But I think my biggest example of culture shock was on our Round Square conference to Colombia this year and just experiencing people with such different perspectives, values, and like opinions on the world that often, like in most cases, were very contradicting to mine. And so being able to kind of bridge those different boundaries we had between different cultures and still build friendships and understandings and respect with each other.
Amazing. Sophie.
Yeah, well, I think my biggest culture shock, I was very young, and I think it was when I went to Japan. And I think that Japan just lives in like another lifetime. It's so clean. They have like a system for garbage and public, and also the public bathrooms is a huge culture shock because it's basically a hole in the floor.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So in this episode, listeners, we're joined by three amazing humans from Havergal College who traveled with me to Colombia. So we're going to talk a little bit about what they've learned about leadership.
I think you're going to love this show. Let's get to it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
With Garth and Jason, we dive right in. Breaking down Ted's world, let's begin. From AFC, Richmond's Field to your day-to-day. Lassoing Leadership's here to stay. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow.
Welcome to Lassoing Leadership. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Rogers.
Hey, and I'm your other host. Welcome. It's great to be here. We're joined by some very special people in my life. I'm excited about this one, Jason. Let's get started.
Indeed, Garth, today we are joined by some of your students again over there at Havergal. So I appreciate you bringing them into this podcast because it's always an enlightening conversation, particularly when we have youth who are leaders. And it's going to be exciting to hear their perspective about life, leadership, global travel, and everything in between, I'm sure. So let's get into it. We're going to explore this in an unscripted and authentic view from the lens of young leaders. They're here to share their stories of triumph, of challenge, of personal growth, giving us fresh perspective on what leadership looks like through the eyes of the next generation. From traveling the world to student conferences in Colombia, these amazing students are here to show us the leadership isn't just about titles or age. It's about actions, empathy, and the ability to inspire others around you. So get ready to journey alongside us, and let's get ready to hear from these global phenoms. Great.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah, amazing. And these are incredible young women who I've had the honor and privilege of working with for many years. Some I've coached, some I'm coaching with, right? And of course, traveling around the world with them, most recently to Colombia for a conference called Round Square. We'll probably get into that a little bit more. I could go on for days and weeks and months about these incredible young leaders, but I thought we should start by having them introduce themselves. So Peyton, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, my name's Peyton. I'm a grade 12 at Havergal, and I'm our Forum for Change prefect this year, which means I'm a member of our elected leadership team. And so the Forum for Change deals with our like community partnerships and some of the outreach that we do, as well as programs like exchange or round square conferences. So a lot of that falls into my portfolio. As well as things with sustainability. But I've been able to go on exchange in grade 10 and then was able to attend the Round Square International Conference in Colombia this year, which was by far one of my favorite Havergal experiences.
Right. Sophie?
Hi, everyone. My name's Sophie. I've been at Havergal since grade 1, and I have 2 older sisters who have also graduated from this school. At the school, I'm a tour guide, which means I talk about and give tours to like incoming families, and yeah.
Hey, I'm Lily. I'm in grade 11 at Havergal and came here in JK, so I've been here forever, it feels like. I was able to go on the Round Square International Conference in Colombia as well with all of these people, which was an awesome experience. And Havergal has also allowed me to travel multiple times. I was also in France for exchange, which was a great experience. And Havergal has offered me a lot of different leadership opportunities. I've been able to be on House Council, which we can kind of talk about. I've been able to work with a lot of Indigenous partners with the school through Water First and through the Reconciliation Committee, which has been awesome. And I'm also the manager of the U16.
Yeah.
We knew that a high school softball team needed a manager.
There you
Yes.
go. There you go. Yeah. So I've worked with them, all of them, with some of the work that we do with Indigenous ways of knowing, being, and doing. Lily mentioned a couple, but we're all with Water First.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Water First is an organization that helps Indigenous communities with water insecurity issues. And it's really empowering, and it's a wonderful thing that we are able to learn more about and then support as well. Yeah, and then we've got athletes here too, right? So Sophie is an elite level synchronized swimmer.
Let's talk about that.
That's okay. It's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
And then Peyton is a high level soccer player, but also on the team that beat Rundle last year in the national championships. So I just want to, remind people of that.
Good softball.
And some great softball. Yeah, I coached you for a couple of years, and now she's on the senior team. So
I promise you, in this podcast, I'm not going to hold that against you, but we will have the Rundle team back in, and they might get the last word. So
It'll be after I graduate. It'll be off my.
Fair enough. All's fair in competition. So with deep gratitude, thanks for joining Garth and I today. And it's really amazing to have young voices on this podcast who are talking about things that matter to them, as far as like, I'm hearing from you that, sustainability is really important, and working with your school, building pride and being involved in your community is all really important. I think that's all part of leadership. And so we're really excited to hear more about the way you see leadership in a bunch of different frames. So Garth, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, let's jump in. So I've given the questions a little bit in advance, but I just want to, they're speaking off the cuff a little bit. So let's start with our experience in Colombia. So when we traveled to Colombia, it wasn't your sort of everyday school experience. Very, very different. What's one leadership lesson that you took from being immersed in a new culture, community, and context? And while you're thinking about that, for our listeners, Round Square is an international consortium of schools, 250 schools across 50 countries. And once a year, they host the Round Square International Conference. And when we were in Colombia, we had over 1,700 students at the conference, about 350 adults. This group from Havergal traveled to the city of Cartagena on the northern shores, and we did our own little tour of Cartagena, cultural tour, really immersing ourselves in understanding the history of Colombia. And we started the conference, and that was held up in the Andes, which was pretty incredible. We started in Bogota and then headed up to the Andes. So we had a lot of different cultural experiences. I think we passed through 5 of the 7 eco zones that the country holds. So yeah, what were some leadership lessons you took away from being immersed in this culture?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I've been at Havergal since JK, so I've been exposed to a very similar environment for my whole life, and a lot of people who've had very similar experiences and perspectives on a lot of things. So going on the Round Square trip, I was able to meet people from all over the world who, shocker, had very different experiences than I have and have very different perspectives than I did. So I learned that as a leader, you really have to be like listening and asking questions about the people who you're trying to lead. You should know them and you should accept their perspectives, because you're going to have different perspectives than people, and it's important to know that, not judge that, and just like keep asking questions and listening.
I think for me, I mentioned to you earlier, but since I went on exchange in grade 10 to France, I was able to speak French. So while communicating was sometimes difficult with like the different accents or not knowing the words, like it was rather easy for me to advocate for myself while I was in France. But going to Colombia was a totally different story because I do not speak any Spanish. And so we did a part of the conference, the very first and the very last night is a homestay. So you stay for a night with a family that lives in Colombia. And so I think that experience kind of taught me as a leader how important it is to like speak up for yourself and as well for others, but also like when there's things going on with yourself, because there was the language barrier there, but also finding ways around that to be able to communicate with people also who in our different Baraza groups, which are the groups that you travel around with throughout the conference. Lily and I were paired up together, so we spent the entire conference together, but there was also people among that group who had different first languages and also had very different life experiences and views on the roles that women should hold in leadership and things like that. So I think a big leadership lesson for me was advocating for myself, but also being able to appreciate that other people come from different backgrounds, and that can sometimes be the reason for their different perspectives, even if they contradict with the ones that we have.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that like a huge part of this leadership opportunity was learning how to put yourself in new situations and connect with people who, you know, there's language barriers, they come from different places, but I also really like what you said where you learn a lot about leadership in yourself. And I think of this one example. I remember when we got to the conference, the first day we were thrown into activities, I never really thought that altitude was real. And I thought, like, you know, like I do like 20 hours of cardio a week. I'm like, oh, a hike? I got this. It's like, what, 45 minutes? Wow. I was like 5 minutes in, I was dying, parched. Like I thought I would not make it up, but I was like, come on, like this is my first day. You got to persevere. And I think that small adjustments like that is what really taught me. One of the biggest lessons I took away from Round Square was all about knowing how to push yourself and like when you can persevere, but when it's also like, I need to take a step back. I just need to take a break.
Yeah.
That was one of the big leadership lessons that I learned.
Especially coming from Cartagena, which was like right at sea level.
Yeah.
And we're like up in the mountains. We also did a hike the first day.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of times we had to like tell our group to slow down because we were like dying. And
we were like holding on to each other. Like,
I know. It's like dragging me up the mountain. But yeah.
And what I'm hearing y'all say is like these are really important leadership lessons for all of us as we move forward. And I hope that leaders who are listening to this do lean in on the fact that you're exemplifying this idea of curiosity, empathy, and perseverance. And I think like when we get curious about other cultures, when we are empathetic towards the plight of others, and we persevere, like I love the story of, you know, coming into it thinking that altitude isn't a thing, and then all of a sudden realizing it is a thing, and then being like, how am I going to deal with that? And I think leadership is a little bit like that. When we come into something, we realize there's challenges we didn't expect or didn't anticipate. So that's absolutely brilliant. And I think from there, I'd like to pivot into leadership in global education. So if you don't mind, Garth, I'm going to jump in with a question. So I know Round Square connects students from around the world. How did, you know, being a part of such a global dialogue change the way you think about leadership on a local or international scale?
Sure, yeah, and I know Peyton had like a really interesting experience and conversation about that. That's why I was like,
yeah.
But yeah, it was a really interesting experience to hear about all these different perspectives. And we would have these talks. Keynote speakers would come in at the end of the day, most of the days when we were on the conference. And afterwards, we would meet up with our full groups and we would have group discussions about the topics. And to understand the different perspectives around the world was honestly shocking to me. Like the different types of taboos that are experienced across the world are just so different than the experiences that we've had. So it was definitely eye-opening, but more specifically, the fact that teenagers are attuned to how maybe non-progressive their countries are and how they're actually uncomfortable with that situation. And still say, like, they talk about these norms and they are in tune with the fact that this might not be the right kind of perspective, or like they might feel uncomfortable in certain situations. And I think that was really interesting for me, because I thought kind of everyone would go along maybe with the taboos that happen in those countries, but that's not actually the case. And I think social media might have something huge to do with that. But yeah, I'll let you.
Yeah, there was one night with the guest speaker that I had a very transformative conversation with my Baraza group after. There was a couple Canadians in my group, a boy from Pakistan, some from Chile, kind of people from all over the world, from Asia. And so we were kind of just diving into the different like gender roles that kind of existed and where we lived. And like I've grown up seeing like how my parents' dynamic worked, like when I've moved quite a bit back between Canada and the US. And my dad's a lawyer, and both times when we moved, he stopped working so he would be able to stay home with me while my mom was pursuing her job when we made those moves. So I kind of grew up with a very like strong female role model in my life being my mom, and also my dad being able to give her those opportunities, and especially coming to Havergal as a school that empowers young women quite literally to make a difference, which is really the tagline of our school. But
The mission statement.
yeah, that. And so then to go into those conversations with people from my Baraza group and hear people say how like their fathers had stopped their mother from working, or these different roles that kind of played out in their life to do with like women versus men, like the education levels. And as Lily was saying, like they were almost aware of these differences and kind of, not to say embarrassed by it, but there's definitely like some like uncomfortable feelings when having that discussion. But it was really inspiring that our group kind of made it past that and we were able to talk about it. And even though that we had such different life experiences and views when it came to those issues, we were still able to have a conversation about it. And I think it was just really eye-opening, because when I went on exchange, it was like it's such a great experience as well, and you meet so many new people from different backgrounds, but it's almost like micro compared to Round Square. You're experiencing like hundreds of different cultures at once rather than kind of just zoning in on one. So I think that like extremeness of that conference was what was really transformative. And just those conversations that you would have in your Baraza groups, I think really like sold the fact that there are just so many different perspectives, and some that you may not even appreciate yourself, but still having like being polite to people around you and being considerate, even though you could entirely disagree with what they were saying, and even sometimes be insulted by it, but still being able to have respectful conversations even across different cultural boundaries.
Yeah, just adding off that, I like completely agree with everything you guys said. And similar to you, Lily, like I've lived in Toronto my whole life, 2 older sisters. My parents have done the same job they've always been doing. I've been at Havergal since grade 1. So like growing up for me, not much has changed. I'm kind of in the same situation that I've always been in. So like what an eye-opening experience it was to go to Round Square and meet all these people from around the world who just like what their normal is so far from my normal. And one of the biggest lessons I learned is, and Pin, you were just touching on this, like you don't always see eye to eye on certain things. You don't always agree, but it's really important to just keep an open mind and be respectful, because something to you, like when you hear something, you may think it is insulting, but to them, that's how they grew up. That's the situation they're in. And it doesn't mean that they're in the wrong for that. Mm-hmm. I think that was one of the big lessons I learned about communication and talking to people who come from like completely different situations.
Listen, thanks so much to the 3 of you for that. I mean, we have a lot of education leaders who are listening to this podcast. We got people inside and outside education industry. But Sophie, or Lily, it was you who brought it up, that social media has created this openness that allows youth to understand perspective, global perspective, or maybe global understanding. And there's a lot of talk out there these days about the pros and cons, benefits and drawbacks of social media. I'm just curious, like in a lived life of a youth who is, between 16 and 18 years old, what are the goods and bads of social media in this day and age, in this moment? If you were to speak directly to school leaders, what advice might you give them?
Something I really liked is Lily and I made a really strong friend group while we were between the 2 of our Baraza groups. It was kind of like half of hers and half of mine. And a kind of nice role that social media has been able to play after the fact is we still keep in touch with them. I'd say we text multiple times a week with them. We're trying to plan a time to reunite with them. One of our friends who lives in New Brunswick, she came to visit us and we went out for lunch. So I think social media has kind of kept us connected after the fact, which has been nice. I had people from all over the world texting me happy birthday when it was my birthday over the weekend. And so I think the role that that plays in that sense is really nice, and it's nice to do that. So
I also, is it okay if I add in? Yeah, I formed like a really strong connection with my homestay family, especially the mom. They took me in, they were so kind. And then, yeah, so we have each other on WhatsApp, we have each other on Instagram, but it was in November when my dad took me on a trip to Orlando. We went to this Colombian cafe and we got, I think it was called arepas.
Yeah.
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 So I remember one morning, this mother, her name's Alexandra. She was so nice, and they took me out to dinner. And then when I came home, they fed me even more. Just they wanted me to taste all their food, all their desserts, like what they love so much, and it was so sweet. But wow, I was so full. But I went to this Colombian cafe in Orlando with my dad, and I got an arepa. And I remember I sent her a picture, and I was saying like I miss you. This makes me think of you. Not as good as the one you made me, but and yeah, it's things like that, being able to connect, even though that was the first time I've seen them. I probably won't see them for a long time, but social media does let us keep those international connections.
Yeah. In terms of benefits, obviously don't trust everything you see online, but I also think you can learn a lot from social media if you are filtering the things that you're seeing and you know what is credible and what's not. Like the reason why all of these students were able to kind of understand the norms of Western society, I think, is because of social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a benefit because they understand like, oh, I kind of don't feel good about not being able to be free in this sense in my country, but over there I know it's not like that. And the more we talked about it, the more they kind of seemed almost like sad about the fact that like we had an experience of being able to openly talk about a lot of things that are really uncomfortable for a lot of people, and they don't have that experience. So that's also kind of a negative because they felt like almost left out from that, as if like their country is not as like progressive as others. But I also think having that knowledge is really important in order to move forward in a lot of places. And like young people will be in the future the change makers, and so if they have this point of view, then in the future like things will change and things are not going to always stay the same, and people become more comfortable all over the world.
Yeah. Even in our like group discussions that we would have after the guest speakers, we would always end off our conversations with like, what's one thing that you do at your school or that you do in your community that you found is like made this amount of change or that amount of change? And everyone is kind of like sharing their ideas. So if we're talking about the difference across like different progressive countries, like people were going home with ideas that they didn't even know existed about things they could try in their communities, about people they could advocate for, change they could make. So I think like even after the fact, I had the guy from Pakistan that was in was he in yours or mine? Yeah. In our combined Veraza group, reach out to me asking about our exchange programs here and how those work and what schools we partner with and how we kind of got that off the ground. So I think those connections can kind of almost inspire change to almost become more progressive when you're exposed to different people that are coming from more progressive countries, or even the inverse of knowing that this is what it's like in some places. How do we continue to move forward?
Yeah, and I think too, when we were at the conference, Jason, these guest speakers, a lot of the work they were doing was through social media. This was a very activist group of guest speakers that we had. So that was really powerful for us as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So you've all spoken so well about, leadership of the self, what you've learned about leadership, what you've learned from other people and being exposed to other people. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, like, think back to who you were before the trip. Think back to your value system. Think back to what you thought leadership was. How would you describe the way maybe your leadership has grown or shifted since then?
Yeah, I can kind of start. I think I'm definitely someone who loves to talk and loves to kind of share my opinion and kind of get in there. And a lot of the leadership I've seen has been very like talkative and active and like kind of up front and in front of everyone, because kind of before this I hadn't seen how much like the leadership team, like what Peyton's a part of, kind of does behind the scenes, because I've only just gotten into grade 11 where like we can kind of actually witness that happening. And I think after Round Square, I noticed how behind the scenes a lot of leadership is, and it doesn't mean that you have to be like this active person in front of an entire group. There's a lot of different types of leadership. And I also learned that I should be taking on different roles of leadership that are not just being in front of people. Like I should be sitting back and listening to people and letting others take that space, and I can kind of take over in other spaces. And I think understanding that all types of leadership are super important kind of came to me on Round Square as I met so many new people.
Right.
Yeah, like it's kind of a hard question to answer because I don't think there's like one definitive answer of how I've changed as a leader, but I agree with you. You know, I am a big talker. I definitely love to talk, but I'm more of the person where I'm very talkative if like we have a close connection or a close relationship, but and you've seen this, speaking in front of a big group, like the school is not necessarily my thing. I mean, like I've gone to obviously Round Square, and in previous summers I've gone to like pre-college summer programs where they put me in those situations. I'm forced to meet new people, forced to make friends, and I love that. But being the center of attention and speaking in front of a lot of people is not where I feel the most comfortable, but that's one thing I'm working on. You know, did that land acknowledgement, did that prayers announcement. So I think that that's where I'm becoming more comfortable, and it's also just the more I'm exposed to it, the more you become used to it. Speaking in front of your class, like doing presentations, we just did a big one in one of our AP seminar class. I think, yeah, that's kind of what I've learned about myself and what I'm going to continue to work on with myself. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's great. For me, I'm a really picky eater. And so going to, yes, I'd say she's almost pickier than I am. But so going to Colombia, there was definitely a lot of things that I had to try that were out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And I feel like throughout all the times that I've moved, like I've really gotten comfortable with being out of my comfort zone. But even with each of those moves, like to New Jersey and to California, I was exposed to different types of people and people with different backgrounds. But I feel like generally, like we saw eye to eye on a lot of things. I know that Lily and I have already talked kind of a lot about this, but I think the going out of my comfort zone aspect of this trip was not the meeting new people. Like I love doing that. It wasn't the being in a new place. It was kind of the trying the new foods, but like not too much. I tried. But it was more about being around people who just like genuinely like challenged like my values, who had like totally different motivations for the way that they did things, different ways of seeing the world, thought that women shouldn't be in leadership. Meanwhile, there's nothing I love more than being in leadership, like inspiring leadership in others. But I think that that's where I grew as a leader, is kind of embracing that out of my comfort zone feeling, which I feel like I had gotten almost used to, which kind of sounds silly, but I feel like I'd been out of my comfort zone so frequently, but it was kind of in similar ways that I almost got used to that. And so this was kind of just a reminder of like the diversity that's out there, and how when you're being a leader, you need to be able to appreciate different people's values, even when they contradict your own.
Yeah, I also...
Listen, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add one more thing where I definitely thrive off the people that I spend time with, and I'm very close with my parents. So when we went to Colombia, it was hard to navigate like the data. We used the Airlo app. It was really hard for me to text my parents when I was up in the mountains or call them. So I had to learn how to, you know, stand strong on my own. But I also, like, going into the trip, we knew some of us were like really close friends. Some of us we didn't know as well. And when you're going on this international trip, you have to lean on each other. So I think it really helped that at the actual conference, we were all put in a villa together.
Yeah.
But a big part of it is, as a group, we just became so close where it's like, this is my family. My parents don't need to talk.
Forget about them.
Just kidding.
Yeah, you build this like reliance on each other. Like when all of us were struggling with like finding food that we like to eat at the conference.
I remember there was one night where like Mr. Nichols came bringing like Doritos chocolate,
and we're just all grabbing for the granola bars,
eating it because we're hiking.
The Dorito drop.
Yeah. Or for the Doritos, we wouldn't be here.
That's on all of us. That's all we were eating.
Or like, Peyton, you're your host family give you like a bucket of snacks,
Oh yeah.
I would eye them on her bed.
It's funny you say that, because one time I was in Guatemala with students, and I actually remember delivering Doritos to their room, and like the elation and the joy that came with, I can actually taste the Doritos at this moment. It was so
Now I
good.
get why you guys get along. It's
And so as I'm listening to you, there's just leadership gold throughout. And I think, Lily, the fact that leadership lives everywhere, I think in every seat and everything you do. Sophie, I hear you talking about knowing yourself, but allowing yourself to push yourself beyond your comfort zone, I think is really, really important. And Peyton, you as well, really getting out of your comfort zone, being open to trying new things, and knowing that that's going to be a challenge. And I think ultimately, what I hear you all say is counting on one another inside these contexts or these places of discomfort as you aim to lead and learn and grow is really, really important. So I think any leader, whether you're on a trip to Colombia or maybe you're running a big company, can learn from those lessons. So thank you for sharing them with us.
Yeah, and I would add on to that. What I've heard here too is like having an open mind and open heart when you are confronted, as Peyton said so well, when you are confronted with people that just have a different value system. And you have to listen to understand, not necessarily what they're saying, but also their perspective, like their worldview. And Round Square conferences, this is built into the DNA of these conferences. But it is a special group that can actually like bring that to fruition and integrate it into themselves. I would answer this last question too. So how would I describe their leadership, how their leadership has grown? So
Please.
Sophie, I had said to you need to be in front of the school more. Like, you're an incredible person. You're an incredible leader. You've got a great value set. You've got a great moral compass. And I challenged her to do we do a land acknowledgement before our school assemblies. And she did it, which was great, right?
It took a lot of convincing, but I was up there at the end.
It took a lot of convincing, but you did it, and you're still learning from it, right?
Yeah.
Like, your answer was unscripted. Like, you are still learning from how you can improve and these different perspectives. And I love what Lily said too. Like, you're a talker, right? Shifting towards a listener. I think that's so important, especially as the manager of the U16 softball team. And then and Peyton, you've always been a strong leader. And you've always had a really strong set of values, and to be the way that you are in the world, to be push yourself that little bit further to understand how you can be with people from around the world. Like, it's so powerful. So it's been really, really significant. It's a really important discussion. And as Jason said, I hope to our listeners, like, if you are listening to this, the world is in good hands with like the future here. Like, if these young women are talking about recognizing cultural competence and curiosity, if they're talking about open mind and open hearts, if they're talking about seeing beyond difference to commonalities, I think that's super powerful for us to take in as a lesson for ourselves.
Listen, Garth, I'd like to sneak in one last question. It's kind of a quick one. Rundle's not a Round Square program, but I've always admired the work that happens at Round Square, in particular, this idea, talk about ideals. So internationalism, democracy, environmentalism, adventure, and leadership and service. For each of you, and maybe we'll start with Peyton this time because she's the most senior in the group. Which of those spoke to you most, and how are you living that out now?
Yeah, I think service definitely spoke to me the most. The way that our conference was geared, it had a lot of work in local communities. Like, our Baraza group went and built, I think yours did too, the chicken coops. Yeah, we went and built chicken coops out of like straw and wood and mud, which was really dirty. Like, it was everywhere. But we spent like hours doing that, and through everyone going through this family's farm, we did the work that family would have taken years to do, just the people that were there. And so just being able to make a difference in those communities and leaving a lasting impact was really inspiring. And like, I've seen a lot of the work that happens at our school through our community partnerships, who being the Forum for Change prefects. And I've loved to see people get involved with the communities around us. And I also have done my share throughout Water First and other volunteering I've done at the school. But kind of making an impact in a community that seems so far away and that you wouldn't really think about in your day-to-day life, but knowing that you made it like a tangible change in their life that will last them for years and like benefit them a lot, that was something that I found really inspiring. And I think that it was a great way to kind of feel like you gave something to the conference after all of us got so much out of it.
Very, very cool. Let's go to Lily, and then we'll close with Sophie.
Yeah, I would say I agree with Peyton for sure, and I would also say adventure was a huge part of this trip.
It was so fun.
It was so fun.
Especially in our pre-conference experience, we had a lot of sort of adventurous times and things that didn't go as planned.
So where were we with that?
Cartagena.
We were in Cartagena for our pre-conference. I'm definitely someone who likes things to be planned, but this was not a situation where we could kind of have everything align with our plan. And we were on a boat day one day, and it just started pouring rain. Like we were all,
And of course, we all sat in the front.
Yeah, we were like
That experience.
and it just starts pelting.
yeah, we were like boating away, and we just see this giant like set of dark black clouds.
Dark,
We're like,
yeah.
oh no, and we like start entering it, and all of a sudden it's like
You're also in like
rain.
open water and you can't see
Yeah,
land.
yeah.
So everyone had such a positive attitude. We all kind of got through it, laughed it off, like had an amazing time on that boat ride.
Mhm.
And we went snorkeling. Like there was just so much stuff that we kind of had to go with and be adventurous about. But that's what made the trip so awesome, because all 8 of us were we were so easygoing, and everyone was being positive about the situation. And I think that's why that was such a great trip, because everyone just like kept smiling no matter what the situation was. Yeah.
The attitudes were always very
Yeah.
positive, even when like Kate, who's like gluten free, had like no options at the conference, just like eating types of cereal all day, every day. But
And the
everyone, everyone just kept such high like morale, and it
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
even like with the days when they were so exhausting, they were very full days. We'd be up at like 6 in the
Get up
morning.
at 6, go to bed at like 11.
Yeah, they were long days, and like you're actively engaged around you. You're hiking, you're building chicken coops, you're painting a mural in the local town. Like you are doing so much in those days. You sit down at dinner, it's like the first time you've sat down all day, but like everyone's just in such a great mood. And
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think like a big part of leadership is taking a bad situation and figuring out how you can get the most out of it. In terms of ideals, I'd have to agree with Lily. I think I definitely found like adventure one of the ones that resonated most with me, and I wanted to talk about the pre-conference too. Obviously, we know like I love to swim. So snorkeling is one of my favorite things to do. That was the 3rd time I've done it. I love to be in the ocean. I love to see the wildlife like in the water. Yeah, like the fish. Yeah, that was so fun for me. And then I think like to answer kind of that part, how are you living that out now? My next task is my dad and I are taking up free diving.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
I'm really
Wow.
excited for that.
Nice.
We haven't planned it yet, but it's been in the works
On the
for a
bucket
while.
I'm going to add, I'll add into this one too, because I witnessed something that was pretty special. In our pre-conference, we met this young woman who was a chef, and she took us to a market, and she said, you will not have experienced this market in your life. Like this is not where tourists go to get their produce or their meat. And I'm like, okay, but it'll be fine. And then we get there.
the bus door opens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said, there is a smell. There was a smell.
It wasn't just
It was, yes.
It was a feeling.
Yeah.
It was cooking under the hot sun, the produce,
Yeah.
the fish.
Yeah.
Meat.
And it was by the coast. It was not the tourist coast. And this smell came into the van. And every one of us, almost gag reflex.
Yeah.
And every one of us were like, okay,
Let's go.
let's go.
Yep.
And it was that what Lily was talking about, what Peyton was talking about. So it's just like the yes and, like, we're going to do this.
Mhm.
That was hard, but how amazing is this? That was difficult. What did we learn from it? It was a really special time for sure.
Well, I'll just add one of my highlights of the market was I actually bought a mango from
Yeah.
one of the stands, and I had to peel it open with my hands, and it got really, really, really messy. But
Terrific.
I was like, you know what? I probably won't be here again. Let me see how I can make the most out of this experience. And I wanted to try something. So I love mango, and it was delicious.
Yeah.
And Lily, you even tried it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
And
awesome.
we made food with the chef.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff. We
Yeah,
made like
class.
ceviche, plantains. Oh,
There
and
was
then
this like
soup.
cheese soup.
There was like this lemonade.
Yeah.
in it, I
Oh,
think.
the coconut lemonade.
Yeah.
is so good.
So it was
Yeah.
just the most delicious stuff that
Y'all are
the entire trip, and she was awesome too.
y'all are making me real hungry over here. Like aside from the smell, it
Yeah.
seems really good.
Yeah.
But I do think I take away from this, just as we close up this episode, it's like I joke, but sometimes leadership is about plugging your nose and jumping in and doing the hard stuff. It really is. It's not all glory. Sometimes it smells a little bit like poo. But I think if you stay positive, you take risks, and you like focus on giving back, I think those are incredible like life lessons you can take forward into leadership. And I think it's a great reminder for all leadership leaders out there for their orientation in the practice. So Garth, I'll throw back to you.
Yeah, thanks. So we're going to wrap it up. What an absolute joy to have you all here and on the podcast. You are young change makers, but your comments, your stories that you shared. Yeah.
Okay.
But all of these stories, it reminds us that leadership is not about title, and it is not about age. And you three, and I could say this about all 8 of us, all 8 of you who are on the trip, there's just so much power. There's so much like hope and optimism that you need to carry forward with you to be those change makers that we need. I am deeply grateful for this opportunity, but also for all the other opportunities we've had over the years, and in particular in Colombia. So it's not about age. It's not about title. It's about experience. It's about curiosity. It's about open heart, open mind, all of these things that we talked about. So thank you very much for your time today.
What a masterclass in leadership. And so here's the leadership challenge for those listeners out there who are looking for one. Step into a space that stretches you, whether it's a conversation, a cause, or a community. Show up, listen, and lead. And hey, maybe reflect on your own ideal.
Yeah. So everyone, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, rate us, share it with someone. And don't forget to like and subscribe, as always. All those fun things.
And I echo your sentiment, Garth. Thank you to our guests today. Lily, Sophie, Peyton, you're absolutely outstanding, and the world's in great hands. And I just feel so affirmed in that belief after talking to the 3 of you. So thank you so much. And if the 3 of you could, would you mind taking us home?
Until next time, keep leading the lasso way.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Step up to the mic. It's time to play. Lassoing leadership every day. From the pitch to the boardroom, lessons call to mind. Keep leading the lasso way. You'll find we've got heart, we've got soul, and humor too. Exploring how TED shows what leaders should do. With Garth and Jason, we dive right in, breaking down Ted's world. Let's begin from AFC, Richmond's field to your day-to-day. Lassoing leadership's here to stay. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from TED we'll learn.